Hi, everybody. David Fogel with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit with a mission of spreading the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world. And I have today a young audience with Nick Weaver and Aidan Hamer. Thank you, guys. Nick and Aidan performed the brass on our Introducing the Symphonina album for Christopher Reed and Steve Lox's Symphonina. You guys did a great job. How you doing today?
Doing just great.
Just great. Well, if you're doing as good as your musical talents are, you'd be doing excellent, I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So a couple questions for you that I typically ask, which is, of course, an easy one. How did you guys get started with music and choosing like the trumpet and the trombone, particularly over maybe some other instruments that you probably were exposed to?
Yeah, we started in a very similar way. I started in 5th grade, started by playing the trumpet, and it was just in elementary school. So here in America, most people start off and they say, here's your choice of instruments. We're not given a lot. And I thought personally that the easiest looking one would be trumpet. And boy, was I wrong. The trumpet has told me otherwise, but it's a very fun challenge. So I'm really glad that I ended up picking the trumpet, and Aidan, I'm sure, has a lot to say about it also.
Aidan was going to pick up his trombone there for a second.
Yeah. I started playing the trombone because my dad plays the trombone. He's a jazz trombone player here in Kansas City, and I just liked hearing him play. He would go practice in the basement at my house, and so I liked hearing him play, and I also kind of just knew what the trombone was. And so like, I guess I'll play the trombone, and then here I am now.
Yeah, so, and you play trombone and bass trombone too, right?
Yeah, I do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you find a significant difference playing the two instruments? Like I have my saxophones here behind me, and I would say each one is very similar when you're playing soprano versus playing baritone, but definitely each one also has its nuances.
Yeah. So they're definitely two distinct instruments, but they aren't quite as different as maybe like an oboe and an English horn might be.
Okay.
I'm not super sure how different those are, but I know that trombone and bass trombone are pretty relatively easy to double on once you get the hang of playing a bigger instrument. So.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So what has been your experience, let's say, with symphonic music up to this point in your young careers?
So symphonic music has been a pretty recent addition to my musical stuff. I've been involved in brass band, and so has Nick, for a very long time, maybe 8 years now. And last year I auditioned for the NAFME symphonic, or the NAFME concert band audition, classical audition. I ended up making this symphony orchestra, and that was actually the first time I ever played in a symphony orchestra. So that was a pretty fun experience. And since then I've really been diving into it and trying to play just about as many classical things as I can. Here at KU, trying to participate and be as good of a trombone player as I can be, participate everywhere here. So that type of thing.
Yeah. And to say a little bit more, the whole NAFME thing, that was a national youth organization for musicians in America. And we auditioned, and, Aidan made the symphony orchestra, which was awesome. Mm-hmm. But very similar to Aidan, I have not really played in a symphonic orchestral setting a whole lot. I did a little bit at the early part of my high school career. That's when I first started playing in some like community orchestras or just small opportunities around here in Kansas. But one thing that's kind of unfortunate is a lot of public schools here in America don't have orchestra programs. They have wind band programs.
Yep.
Yeah. The wind band is fun, but I really like orchestral music. It's a very different style, but it's a lot of fun. So recently, me as well, I've been diving into that orchestral setting, and I think it really pays off.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you guys done a lot of marching band then also?
Oh, yeah.
We both did all the way through high school, but we've been focusing on other musical things during college. And yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So I had an interview you may have seen with Julie, our clarinet player, and she did marching band in Arizona. So, 110 degrees, she's out with her plastic clarinet. And I suppose you guys could have plastic trumpets and plastic trombones for that too. They must get very hot if you're out in the sun the whole time. Is there anything that you need to do with intonation if you're playing outdoors that in a hot setting like that versus in a studio setting? Are there little nuances?
Yeah, there are a lot. One of the biggest things with intonation is that, especially here in Kansas, it's a roll of the dice, whatever the weather's going to be. The marching band season, probably at the start of the season, is about 100 degrees on average. And then by the end of the season, it could be 20 degrees. So
Okay.
at the very beginning,
That's
everybody
right.
is going to be, it's never fun. We're right in the middle. But at the very start of the season, everyone's really hot. And when the instruments get hot, usually the brass, it gets sharp. And so we have to make adjustments with our tuning slides and whatnot. And then by the end of the season, when it gets really cold, we all get flat. And so then we have to try our best to heat up our instruments and, keep our mouthpieces warm.
Yeah.
It's a debacle, but it's a fun
Probably
challenge.
heat up your bodies too. I imagine, like for me, I'm an older guy, but if it gets really cold outside, my hands don't work as well. If I'm playing piano or something outside, it's tougher, right? So you probably have the same thing to some degree.
Sometimes the instruments on the trumpets, the valves will freeze, and that's a big problem. So
slides will freeze.
Slides will freeze too. Well, you guys are so young. How did you Aidan? I guess your dad might have been your mentor. Is that right?
He was for a little bit after the initial kind of steps, maybe in the first, I guess, semester of when I was playing. We've kind of separated, and he's given me a lot of opportunities with other local people that maybe fit my goals a little bit better, because he's much more of he plays pretty much lead trombone in a big band exclusively.
Okay.
And so I still have a lot to learn from him. He's still probably one of my favorite musicians. However, maybe not in a classical sense, I guess.
Sure. So. Well, if he's playing lead jazz trombone, he's extremely talented too. What about you, Nick?
Yeah. Could you remind me the question again?
Yeah, your mentors. Like, we heard about Aidan's dad, but we didn't hear who was your inspiration growing up to pick the trumpet and go with it, stick with it.
Yeah, I think I've had a lot of mentors over the ways. At the very beginning, I think my biggest mentor was my middle school teacher. His name was Rob Foster, and he had a lot of opportunities for me, just in pushing me as a student to try and be the best that I could, getting me to play in different groups like the brass bands that Aidan was telling you about earlier, and kind of getting me started on jazz, because I'm also a big proponent of jazz. That's probably up there, with orchestral music. Those are my two favorite styles of music to play and to listen to. So Rob Foster was definitely early on the biggest mentor I've had.
That's great. Is he still your mentor? Is he still around?
Yeah, he's still around, and we see him from time to time because, it's a small community, the music world, and so we'll see him around. But right now, I've had a lot of teachers because, as you get more and more into the weeds of playing a musical instrument, as you probably know, you seek out different people to try and push yourself to be the best that you can. And sometimes it takes a lot of people. So I've had a lot of help from other people. Steve Leisering is the trumpet professor here at KU, and he's helped me since the beginning of high school, and that's been really nice. And then as for jazz, there's a local jazz trumpet player here who is just phenomenal, and his name's Stan Kessler, and he's really taught me just about everything that I've known for jazz here.
That's great. So do you guys take lessons still, regularly, or do you practice kind of on your own? What's your routine? So
I take weekly lessons with Dr. Michael Davidson here at KU. So that's what I'm doing right now.
That's great. Okay. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I'm studying with Professor Steve Leisering here at KU, also taking weekly lessons. I've taken all around. I've taken a lot of online Zoom lessons from different people, just kind of around the country, just to learn what I can, because with an instrument as annoying as the trumpet is, you really gotta reach for whatever you can with different people.
Well, both of you guys play instruments that can play extremely loud. Okay, so we've all experienced this. You guys know it firsthand. When I was a kid and playing in orchestra, I played sax in orchestra a little bit. One trombone is louder than 16 violins any time. Anytime. Trumpet too, right? Anytime. So you guys have to have like a good sense of control to know like where are you, and you have to be able to play soft, right? I mean, it's tricky, I'm sure, to be able to do that. It's not so hard on a reed instrument, and in clarinet you can play like really, really soft, almost nothing. But if you're when you're practicing, do you practice over all the dynamic range of your instrument, consistently, or what do you focus on?
Oh, absolutely. We practice everything, or at least you should be practicing everything over it.
Yeah. Like the two-set violin guys say, 40 hours a day, right? That's it.
Yeah. Especially in my long tone practice, or I do some natural slur work, I'll try to do it at every dynamic. I'll change dynamic during the exercise. I'll start soft as I can, be going to as loud as I can. I'll do tiny little changes, maybe from mezzo piano to mezzo forte. I'll try to simulate everything I can, all the dynamic changes that'll come up in my long tones and other practice, so I don't see in practice that for the first time when I'm on a gig.
Yeah, right.
I've got to admit, I am not as thorough as Aidan might be in my practice sessions, but I definitely do spend a lot of time playing very soft, because on the trumpet, you're not necessarily going to be asked a lot of the times to play as soft as you can. It's going to happen, but it's more the benefits of having that control and knowing what it feels like to make yourself play as soft as you can. That way, when you play on the rest of the dynamics of the instrument, it's going to sound really good. Because if you can get your softest sound to sound really good, then everything else is going to come a lot easier.
Yeah. So what are your goals for music for the rest of your life? I don't know what you're studying professionally. It might be music, it might be something else, but what are your musical goals for the rest of your life?
Yeah, my musical goals personally are a little up in the air. I'm studying trumpet performance and jazz here at KU, but I'm not entirely sure what I want to do once I get out of college, or once I kind of go into the professional world. I know that I'm going to want to do something with music, and it's going to probably involve my trumpet. It's going to involve playing different instruments, making music with people, but I don't really have a set path yet. If I end up auditioning for a symphony orchestra and I make it in, well, that would be great. If I don't, and I end up playing gigs, kind of being a freelancer, as I'm already doing with Aidan a little bit, that could be fine too. But I'm just trying to put in as much effort as I can now, to where a possibility is available in the future to make a living.
Sounds great. Aidan, what about you?
Yeah, for me, my goal is to either go join a symphony and do that whole thing, or maybe go to LA and try to do the session thing.
Okay.
I'm also studying trombone performance and jazz studies, same as Nick, except with the trombone.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to become well-rounded as a musician as I can be, to try to approach and be able to do anything that's asked. Because, the number one thing for me is I just love playing the trombone. So as long as I get to do that, I'm happy.
There you go. Well, I have to say, when Christopher Reed and Steve Locks were chosen as the winner and runner-up from our Symphonina contest last year, my goal was to put them on an album, which we did do, and it's released and submitted for Grammy consideration for Classical Compendium. And I appreciate you guys putting your talents into it. When I heard your little audition things on the internet, I knew very specifically that you guys would be an absolutely great fit for the music that we had in mind there. And I think I was exactly right, because you guys just completely nail it. And Nick, your studio setup, I have to say, it's excellent. It's like the tone that you get, not just from yourself and your instrument, but I think Aidan used your studio setup too, if I understand correctly. You want to talk a little bit about, like, let's say studio recording or home recording, or what kind of things you find are important in that? Because one of the things is, like, playing a live gig, that's one thing, but being a session person or picking up gigs over the internet for other people to enjoy your music, you have to be able to have a little bit different recording setup and be able to have a little different mindset, I think. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. The live setting playing is a lot different than the studio recording setting, and Aidan could tell you the same thing. When you go in for a live gig, the last thing that you're really worrying about is the sound there's usually a sound person for that on the gig. If it's kind of up there, someone will be taking care of that. But when you're doing home recording, it is all put on you as the musician or whoever's recording to get a good sound. And having a good sound on your instrument doesn't necessarily correspond to getting a good sound on the mix. And so my studio setup is kind of interesting. It is in my basement. And originally what I had was one microphone and my trumpet. And when I tried doing that, I realized that I did not get a very good sound. And so I had to do a lot of research to figure out, all right, how am I going to mic these instruments? What can I do to get the best sound? And now I use two microphones, and that has seemed to work really well for just about every instrument that I record. One of them is a much larger, darker sounding microphone. It's a ribbon microphone.
Okay.
And the other one is a condenser.
Yeah.
And that gets more of the high frequencies, because with just about any instrument, even if you have a low instrument or a high instrument, they're going to have frequencies that kind of go all across the spectrum. And so being able to dial in on, I want a bigger, bassier sound or a larger and brighter sound is very important to getting a sound that someone is actually going to like when they listen to it.
Yeah.
So, and especially on Fiverr is how we kind of reached each other.
Yep.
It's very important that you can tell people very quickly, I'm going to sound good, you're going to get your money's worth, and there's not going to be a problem. So
Exactly.
we have to put a lot of time into that.
Yep.
But it definitely pays off.
Yep. And Aidan, do you have any comments on recording in Nick's studio setting? How does it work for you?
It works great. The biggest thing for me is that all of his music is just on his computer. So I have to turn a little sideways sometimes so I don't hit his computer with my trombone. But other than that,
Right.
Sounds great. I don't have any issues.
I'm gonna quickly say, I'm in San Diego and the sun is setting and my home here is getting a little dark. So I'm gonna turn this on here and see if we can make me look a little better, maybe. Let's see. There we go. And there we go. We don't have professional studios here. We just do what we do and try to promote music to young people. I do want to ask you what your opinions are of the ideas of Symphoninas and your experience playing them. Did you enjoy that? And would you be interested in continuing on for the 2024 season with us?
Oh, absolutely. I think the Symphonina is such a great idea because, you listen to a Mahler symphony, especially like Mahler 3, that's an ordeal. Especially if you're just like, listening to it while you're walking to class, that's a 3-day thing, So the symphony, I think, especially for young people, who are so focused on getting to places. Nick power walks everywhere,
Sure.
So he doesn't have the time to listen to a full movement of a symphony, but he does have time to listen to a Symphonina or a movement of a Symphonina.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is just great, turning such great music into bite-sized things that are just as good. I just think it's awesome, and
Wonderful.
I would be happy to be playing on those.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's one. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I completely agree. The idea of having something of like the orchestral music sound that you can listen to and fully enjoy very quickly is really nice, especially because a lot of young people these days are, the attention span is not the greatest. And so if you put on a movement of Mahler symphony, you might get through a fifth of it and then you have to go and then you don't listen to it again, which is a shame, but that's where the Symphonina comes in and you can listen and you hear everything that you need to hear in that symphony, and it's just like it's there. So I really like the idea of it, and especially playing on it. It was a lot of fun because I could hear like there was a theme that was developed across these different movements, and you could hear everything that orchestral music has to offer, but just like flying right by. So it was a lot of fun to play on.
I have to tell you, it's not just younger people who have a little bit of attention span issues these days. It's older people too. So although our motivation is spreading the joy of symphonic music to young audiences, since we're not too far from the holiday season, I would say kids from 1 to 92, because hopefully everybody can enjoy. And most people these days do get their music streaming on a phone, right? So if you're listening to a movement and it's 3 minutes or 2 minutes and 30 or 4 minutes long, hopefully you can enjoy it and then go listen to something else if you want, or continue to listen to more symphony music, and hopefully we'll be able to provide that service for them. If people want to get in touch with you, is it okay for me to put your emails in the credits on our conversation on the outro? Yeah, okay. And I know I have Nick, so Aidan, if you want to send me yours, or Nick can send me yours, that would be great. Is there anything else you'd like to cover while we're here together?
I can't think of anything.
Me neither. I think we covered just about everything.
We covered. What's your next gig? Let's do that.
Next gig.
Yep.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
What are you doing?
So I'll show you. We have a sign on our wall. Right up here. I don't know if it's backwards. We're called Arithmetic Band. We
Arithmetic
Band. Yeah, a fusion band. And we're both multi-instrumentalists, and Aidan plays bass guitar, and I play electric piano.
Nice.
And so we're playing tomorrow at a brewery. It's an outdoor gig, and
wonderful.
We're going to be just having fun playing a bunch of original music.
That's wonderful. If you guys can, take a video to share with me. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate the time, and I appreciate the talent that you guys have and everything that you went and put into the album, and be looking forward to staying in touch with you as we go through the rest of this year into next year.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes,
it's my pleasure. Okay, everybody, David Fogel from the Symphonina Foundation signing off, and as always, stay tuned for more.